Hey guys, make sure you stop right now and don't make all of these mistakes regarding caged hearts. I can already see the major confusion around some of the parts regarding these caged hearts and how they actually work and how to get the biggest advantage from them as possible. And it could end up actually wasting a ton of time and hurting some of your progression. And actually, one of the things that has helped me reach level 50 already in Season 1 of Diablo 4 is the Asus ROG Ally. I'm giving away this beautiful Asus ROG Ally to you. Asus teamed up with me to bring you their state-of-the-art Asus ROG Ally that is literally a portable PC right in your hands. It runs a Ryzen Zen 4 processor, a 512GB NVMe drive with a 7-inch Full HD 120Hz screen, and I was able to load up Steam to play any game I wanted and load up the Battle.net launcher and run Diablo straight on it and play whenever I'm away from my computer and take it wherever I want, or even be productive and do some work since it is a computer. And you can win this Asus ROG Ally super easy. All you have to do is like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below Diablo 4 and your favorite tip from this video. You also get a second entry by visiting the link below for the primary giveaway video if you do the exact same thing over there. That being said, make sure you get your 2 entries in because this isn't going to go for long. Now let's get right into the mistakes you definitely shouldn't be making in Season 1. That being said, let's start on how to get caged hearts. Now you can obviously only do this on the seasonal content, which means you need to start a new seasonal character because it's not a mechanic that's in the Eternal Realm. Now the way caged hearts essentially work is you find malignant enemies throughout the map, and you also visit malignant tunnels. Those are dungeons, and you're able to kill enemies in there, kill a higher version of that enemy, and then get a caged heart from that enemy. But primarily, these malignant tunnels are the main sources of caged hearts. You can see these shown as random dungeons on the map with the dungeon emblem and the leaf symbol right here that mentions it has malignant enemies. And once again, on random parts of the map, sometimes you'll just find malignant enemies that will actually drop these caged hearts that's separate from these tunnels. Now there are essentially 4 main types of these malignant hearts, and each of them actually play specific roles in your build. Additionally, there are some that are a lot more powerful, and I'm going to show you how to go about getting those. So the first is a vicious heart. Like you can see here, it is actually an offensive power, meaning it's going to give you an offensive power ability. You can see here we get electrically charged enemy just as an example. These vicious hearts are offensive specific, and these are the red ones. The next one we have are brutal hearts. These are the blue ones, and these are defensive powers, meaning they're going to give you a defensive ability. So the red is offense, blue is defense. If you remember that, you'll never forget it. The purple hearts are devious hearts. These are utility based. You can see we get percentages here to some of our utility type abilities. And again, these are going to play a big role in giving us utility for our build. And those are the 3 main types of malignant hearts. The final type of malignant heart is the wrathful heart, and these are the more extreme powerful ones. Given that these hearts are really powerful, they're a lot more rare, but they're actually not that difficult to get, and I'm going to show you here really quickly in just a minute how to go about getting the best caged hearts in the game. The wrathful hearts can fit into any one of those, making them extremely valuable because you can get a perfect roll or a max roll on gear, be able to put a wrathful caged heart in there because it fits into any socket instead of having to find a piece of max roll gear that has a specific socket on it. The wrathful hearts are the extremely rare ones, and they're rare because they are the very good hearts. They're a little harder to get, but not that difficult, and I'm going to show you now how to kind of get those. So the extremely rare caged hearts, which are the wrathful hearts, are dropped from wrathful malignant enemies. So wrathful hearts are the most powerful caged heart in the game, and they're actually a little bit different to get and a little more difficult. There's 2 specific ways you can get them. One is going to be by coming across either in a tunnel or somewhere else a wrathful malignant enemy that you'll be able to kill and get a wrathful caged heart drop from him. The only other 100% concrete way to actually get one is to visit Corman's workbench, which can be found here in Kiovashad, right here where the little leaf table is. And the only other one is down here underneath Ked Bardu, down here where this other workbench is about right here. Ideally, you can use the one at Kiovashad. It's the easiest to get to as it's right by this teleport. Now, the way you have to get these wrathful hearts are using the crafted caches. You can see this uncertain heart cache. It contains a random caged heart with a chance at a wrathful heart. This means you can get a wrathful heart this way, and if you get one through this actual cache, it'll give you one just like this that you can put straight into your gear, and it would take a while to farm out enough of these to get the proper one. There's also this uncertain invoker cache, and this basically gives you a random invoker that you can use at the end of a malignant tunnel dungeon, such as this one. And once you use that at the end of the dungeon, it's going to give you whatever version of that invoker as a caged heart. So for instance, in my consumables, you can see I have a brutal malignant heart. If I use this at the end of that dungeon, I will be getting a brutal caged heart from it, just like this one, which would be one of the blue ones. And if you open this invoker chest and get one of the invokers for a wrath invoker, again, you can use that at the end of the dungeon and get a wrath caged heart this way. Now, we're not exactly sure yet if this means if you get it from a dungeon, you can get a much more potentially powerful one. You can see if you just roll for the heart itself, it only costs 20, but if you just roll for the invoker, it costs 40. We don't know what the exact drop rates are, but the hearts, there are a lot of hearts that aren't wrathful hearts. It's definitely not a 1-to-4 ratio. So if you do open this, you don't have a 25% chance to get a wrathful heart, because there's a lot other hearts that are not wrathful. The wrathful ones obviously are more rare. And if you open the invoker chest, essentially you have a 25% chance of getting an invoker. Essentially, the way we see it before we know the drop rates is you can only get 1 out of 4 things this way. You can get a wrathful invoker or one of the other 3. So ideally you could go for the hearts, but again, there's so many random hearts that aren't the wrathful ones. It almost makes more sense to spend the 40 and go for the uncertain invoker cache in hopes you can get a wrathful invoker to use in the dungeon that will end up dropping you that caged heart. So this is what I would recommend doing for now until we have more concrete information about what's better. And that's how you're going to get the really good and rare caged hearts, or the wrathful ones, because as you can see, the wrathful ones are the ones that have the best actual effects on them. And also, while we're on this topic, I've already talked to a lot of people that are wondering why they're getting the same exact effects on their caged hearts over and over and over again. This is primarily because out of the pool of effects, you only have a certain amount that you can get. But again, there are some that are wrathful, which you haven't seen yet. There are some that are tier 3 and tier 4, which you haven't seen yet. And just as an example, I'll throw up some cage charts on the screen, but some of them are locked behind tier 3 and tier 4. So you have to get to that point in the game before you actually unlock being able to find those. So there are a lot more effects for these cage charts than you're currently seeing. Once you level up and get to that tier 3 and tier 4 level, you'll start seeing a lot more of the better ones that you really, really want. Now, another big mistake I've experienced already is when creating a new build, you run into an issue with inventory space. Obviously, we already don't have enough inventory space, especially with having to recollect our gems. And then we have caged hearts stacking in here on top of it. So essentially, to save you some time and keep you from running back and forth to the vendor all of the time, you should be consistently early on level-wise swapping in these caged hearts into your gear. If you look, essentially it costs literally nothing to swap this into your gear. All it does is get rid of the current caged heart that's in your gear and permanently destroys it, but then your new one goes in there, and then it's in there forever until you want to replace it. You should continue doing this because as you level up, these actual caged hearts scale with your item level. You can see here, this one is a 424 item power, this one is a 437, and the actual ranges are different. You can see the range here is 1280 to 1920, and the range here is 1320 to 1980. It's a much bigger range, even though it's only 13 item power difference. So as you begin to level, you're going to find yourself with an abundance of these. Every once in a while, when you get a new one with a similar skill, which you'll get pretty often, because you have a smaller pool to collect from early on, make sure every once in a while you're dropping in and just replacing these caged hearts so you're upping your skills consistently, and it will make it a lot easier to level and do a lot more damage this way. You are going to need a lot of the materials for these later on in the game. I can already see you needing a lot, so make sure you're never throwing these away. Whenever you get the chance to get one, make sure you drop something to pick this up. And worst case scenario, whenever you come back, just make sure you go ahead and salvage as many as you can. If you know you're not going to use this, or you're even thinking that you're not going to use it, or you don't even know if you want to use it, especially early on, because you're going to get so many more upgrades. You could literally find another one in 2 seconds. It's probably way better than these basic effects in terms of the actual numbers on them. If you don't plan on putting it on right away, come in here and immediately salvage it, because you're going to get the resources for it and you're going to need that later on in the game. And trust me when I say it will take up all your inventory space, and you'll be back here every 2 seconds if you don't do that. And remember, some of these cage charts may seem like they're absolutely horrible, and that's just again because there are wrathful ones that are harder to get, and the other ones are locked behind tier 3 and tier 4. Again, make sure you slowly and surely build up your materials, so that way by the time you actually have to start making a lot of these crafted caches later on in the game when you get higher level and find the perfect caged heart for your build, that way you're going to have enough so that way you can get and roll enough of these that you're going to be able to get those higher tier caged hearts. Because once you get to level 50 and beyond, if you don't have any of these, you're going to have to start farming them again from scratch. In later game, you need as many of the materials as you can get. Now, one thing you should be doing is not doing this. So if you notice I have a piece of gear here that I don't have a caged heart in, or not, I don't have anything in at all. Now, we still do have skulls that give you armor, but skulls at this point are pretty much useless, and I'm going to show you exactly why. So at all points, you should have all of your gear slotted with caged hearts. Why? Because A, you're not really going to use them later on. They give you big power boosts now. B, again, as you level up, certain imbuements like this and the range of damage that they do and stuff scale with the item power of the actual item itself, which means you should be replacing these with the same effects if you find them very often, just because as your item power goes up, these flat damage bonuses that you get and things like that on this gear, it's going to scale very quickly and very highly as your item power for these items goes up. And the third big reason why is these actually give armor. So the caged hearts themselves give armor bonuses. So you can see just like a skull here gives plus 75 armor on jewelry, if you look at this caged heart, it actually gives us 114 armor. And again, that armor scales directly with the item power level, so the lower it gets, the lower the armor gets. I'm sitting around about 500 item power gear, so you can see just this caged heart alone gives me 114 armor on top of the actual effect that the caged heart gives me. The skulls don't even come close in this point, are completely useless. So remember, not only are you getting the effect itself from the caged heart, you're getting the big armor bonus that comes along with it. Even this ring at 266 item power gives me 151 additional armor. If you remember, the perfect skulls I think only give you 220 or 250. So at 266 item power, I already have over half of that. This is going to give you an insane amount of armor late game. So if anything else, make sure you just have one put in here just for the armor. Even if you don't have one you like, you can see my armor is 2,973. When I drop this in here, it goes up 111 points, giving me much more survivability. Make sure you always have something in here. It gives you a lot more defense, which is now really important in Diablo 4. Now, one thing to keep in mind, which isn't very important early game because of the effects, but if you see this devious heart does have a percentage range. So primarily for these that don't scale off item power because it's a flat percentage, you can see it's a 20 to 40% range. So let's say we got a 40% range here. If you do find one of these that you do know is the best in slot for your build, make sure to save it for late game or later in the game, because once you put a caged heart in here, you actually cannot take it out. It is in there forever, or it is in there until it is replaced by another one. So once you put it in, it's like imprinting an aspect. If it goes in a piece of gear, it's done. There's no taking it back. So primarily for things like the Wrathful caged hearts or other ones that are much harder to get, if you find one of those and it's a max roll, you may want to consider saving it so that way you don't have to go hunt down another one, because like I said, it will get really expensive to do that later in the game. Now later on when you're trying to find a caged heart, you shouldn't just be running around aimlessly trying to find those hearts. Make sure if you're looking for an offensive or defensive aspect or even a utility aspect, you're actually target farming the correct caged heart. And there's a couple primary ways to do that. Again, if you go into the crafting table, you can actually craft a specific caged heart once you get enough materials. Let's say I'm looking for a brutal caged heart. You can target farm them this way. Keep in mind, it does cost 35 of every other resource. So if you're looking for a vicious, it's going to cost 35 of the devious and brutal ones, or the devious is going to cost 35 of each of the other two. So it is expensive to do it this way. And the Wrathful heart specifically can actually fit in any specific socket. So gear, how it has a red, blue, or purple socket. And that is every mistake I can see being made with caged heart. Also guys, if you haven't entered this giveaway yet, again, all you have to do is like the video, comment below Diablo 4 and your favorite tip from this video, and subscribe to the channel. Again, you get a second chance to win this thing if you go to the original giveaway video that is also linked in the description and pinned comment, and basically do the same thing over there. That being said, I hope this helped. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer all of them. Make sure to watch this awesome Diablo 4 content on the left or on the right of your screen. Thanks.